I have a very clear recollection of the first time that I submitted a draft. I know that the memory is imprinted because it was so painful, because it was so emotional. I remember opening up the document and seeing all the comments. I had a physical response of almost instantaneous tears. And I was like, I'm not smart enough. I can't do this. I'm a terrible writer. I'm a bad person. I must be a total loser.
You're listening to the Happy Doc Student Podcast, a podcast dedicated to providing clarity to the often mysterious doctoral process. Do you feel like you're losing your mind? Let me and my guests show you how to put more joy in your journey and graduate with your sanity, health, and relationships intact. I'm your host, Dr. Heather Frederick, and this is episode 18. In this episode, I welcome my guest, Dr. Kelly Stewart. She holds a Doctorate of Education in Educational Leadership and Innovation with a specialization in Curriculum and Policy from Arizona State University. She started her career as a language arts teacher and is currently an assistant professor and faculty lead for the Ph.D. in Education program at the University of Arizona Global Campus. She is actively involved in a number of university initiatives, including the Doctoral Advisory Council. While she has worked in a number of diverse roles from mentoring and coaching educators, designing innovative curriculum, developing staff, and serving in administration, her passion has always been working with beginning teachers, developing sustainable systems for support, and mentoring programs. Her area of research focuses on recruitment and retention of teachers globally, and recently she has begun examining how to develop virtual professional learning communities and support systems for online associate faculty. I am so excited to welcome her to today's show about such an important topic. I can't wait to see how this conversation about how to feel good about feedback is going to evolve. Kelly, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Heather. I'm so glad to be here. I've really enjoyed the other episodes, and so I'm grateful to have been asked to sit and chat with you for a little bit.
I can't wait to have this discussion because in many of the previous episodes, this issue of receiving feedback, receiving critical feedback seems to seep in almost any topic we talk about during the doctoral journey. And today we're going to focus specifically on this concept of receiving critical feedback during the doctoral journey, and not just for the students, for the faculty as well.
Yeah, that's right. I think the idea of feedback, when you think about it from, let's just start back when we're learning how to ride our bike. So some loving person says to you, no, you need to sit up straighter. You need to keep your hands on the handlebars. Pedal, 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 right? And you're receiving information that is tweaking a performance. You finally start riding and you get excited and there's joy in that moment. And so I started really thinking about that from the idea that you might have been frustrated, you fall off your bike a few times, you're annoyed with your person who's giving you this input. And yet, once the riding starts happening, you realize, oh, all of those tips, they made sense and they helped me to ride a bike. And so somewhere between riding a bike and to whatever part of your educational journey you're in, and as a professional in whatever role that looks like, the idea of somebody telling you something about your performance, giving you tweaks essentially is what they are. It doesn't land the same way it did when we were kids learning to ride our bike. There's a feeling piece to it that is so heavy oftentimes that it becomes personal. It feels shameful or hurtful or frustration that builds up. We have students who receive feedback and then essentially say they're quitting. They're quitting their journey because it's too much.
Or they think that feedback is telling them they can't do this. They're a failure. I just talked to a student yesterday who said, I need to stop messing up. And I said, wow, none of this feedback is saying that you've messed up on anything. This is part of the process.
That's exactly it. I started thinking about how do we help students and how do we help ourselves to better receive feedback and take it as a gift? And I know that that may sound, maybe to use your word, a little woo-woo or like, come on. But if you truly saw feedback, if you saw comments in your paper, if you saw those wrapped in a bow with this beautiful, perfect wrapping package, and you opened it up and you received it in that way, how would that shift the brain, shift out of imposter syndrome, shift out of the panic feeling, and shift out of all the negative self-talk that seems to creep in around feedback? And it doesn't matter what level you are. I have a 12-year-old and a 16-year-old. The receiving of feedback in their work is just as hard as it is as a doctoral student.
It's so tough to not take it personal, right? And this idea of visualizing it coming to you as a gift and thinking about maybe a holiday that you enjoy, whether that's your birthday, an anniversary, and you think, here's this gift, I'm going to open it. I wonder what's inside.
Right. Approaching it with curiosity. A long time ago, someone taught me, because I was a mentor for teachers in the classroom. And so my role was that I was going in, watching them teach, which already puts them on edge. They have a very complex job they're doing. And now suddenly somebody else is in their room. And as I was watching them teach, you can see the angst happening sometimes, and other teachers completely received it differently. But the interesting part was Sangi's work on the ladder of inference was something that we talked about with teachers, and this idea of a ladder. So as you're receiving information, are you on the first rung of the ladder? So you're simply getting information. This is the reality of what's coming at me. And then climbing up the ladder. So my selected reality, my interpreted reality. Now I'm into assumptions. Now I've jumped to conclusions. Now I'm in my belief system. Now I'm actioning that in a way that makes me go over the ladder. And so you never want to get over the ladder because you've left the reality of the conversation and the feedback that was coming at you to begin with. And so it's like, how do you climb yourself back down the ladder to say, okay, I need to recognize what input is being provided to me, and then figure out how I can just stay in those bottom rungs of the ladder rather than moving up to my assumptions, because that's where I start getting off track.
And anxious and stressed out and
Yeah.
overwhelmed. And we know as a human in a body feeling those emotions, when the amygdala fires up and we go into sympathetic activation, now we're not even thinking straight. So it's almost this double whammy. If you are getting feedback, whether you're a student or a faculty member, and you're allowing yourself to climb up that ladder and maybe go over the ladder, like you said, you've kind of lost touch with this reality. And how do you get yourself out of it when you've lost access to the part of your brain that makes good decisions?
Right. I mean, all of us are guilty of at least writing the email, maybe not sending it. And if you're in an online situation, sometimes as an instructor, this is where I receive the email and realize, what is happening here? I thought the paper was excellent. I thought things were clicking along. The feedback is those tweaks that you need for the next set of steps you're going to take. So I think it's that piece of teaching ourselves, all of us, how we can back ourselves down, and we kind of just need to simply name it. Okay, I'm opened my paper, I'm breathing, I'm reading to understand what is the input that is coming at me, and then naming how they were feeling. If you realize that you've named the emotion and it feels negative, you feel that you are going over the ladder, that you are anxious, that you are feeling badly about yourself, the best thing to do is to step away from the feedback at that moment. Oftentimes, when you come back to the document with perspective, clarity, you realize the purpose of the feedback is to help you move forward. When you start thinking about the person on the other side, oftentimes on the other side of a computer, who is giving you feedback, there's no one sitting in their office thinking, oh, I can't wait to make Heather feel terrible about her most recent draft that she just poured her heart and soul into. She hasn't slept for 3 days. The emotion in your brain isn't working at the level it should be. It's easy to fire off an email or say something or say, I'm done. I can't do this. But when you've walked away and you've thought about it and you've processed, and then you come back to it, you realize the person is trying to help you grow. Your instructor is trying to help you grow. And no one was born innately knowing APA formatting or how to write a dissertation. There's no secret manual that some people were given. It's all new for everyone. Even your instructors had no idea what they were doing when they were in the middle of it either. If I could redo K-12 education, I would build in an iterative cycle of feedback, because we have trained our students that they do the work, they submit it, and that's it. They walk away never to think about it again.
You know what, Kelly, I got to stop you there because that is huge.
Yes.
Because when you think about that, what that means is that in general, our educational systems have set us up for failure at the doctoral level because we're not used to this.
For sure. And the reality is that our students don't think that the papers, any paper, doesn't matter, any learning activity assignment, should come back with anything other than affirmation on it. I know students oftentimes will say like they don't see good stuff in their paper. And I think it's important as an instructor to think about that. And I also think it's important as a student to realize that the reality of the job of giving the feedback is for tweaks. And unfortunately, we don't spend as much time like affirming all of the great things that are there because we're looking for expediency. Like we need to get those tweaks done so we can keep you moving in the process. If in kindergarten, where we give kids tons of feedback because they're learning to read and they are receivers of information, and most